Unsupermarket. Leigh, today we're going to chat about what's working and what needs fixing in Australia's food system. At Box Divvy, our mission is to unsupermarket people and connecting local communities with farmers and local producers through our food hubs. And we deliver market fresh seasonal fruit and veg and groceries.
That's excellent, Jane. We are creating food communities and all the while being transparent on what farmers and wholesalers get paid.
So with the ACCC, they published a report, and I thought it was a timely chat with Andrew Leigh, who happens to be the Assistant Minister for Competition, Charities and Treasury, plus Assistant Minister for Employment. So he's got a lot of work on. He's heavily involved in the Market Code of Conduct.
Listeners, I'd like to mention also that Andrew Leigh is a keen Ironman triathlete and marathon runner and hosts a podcast called The Good Life, Andrew Leigh in Conversation, about living a happier, healthier and more ethical life.
Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Leigh. Wonderful to be with you both. And
as someone, Andrew, who pushes your body beyond in Ironman triathlons and marathons, I'm imagining that you approach healthy eating to support what you're doing in your training and your broader goals to living a healthier life. Are there some principles or habits that you follow when it comes to nutrition?
So, Jane, I try and eat as much fresh fruit and veg as I can and get a good lot of protein in. One of the things that happens when you're over 50 is you tend to see quite substantial muscle and bone loss unless you keep up the protein and the exercise. After I've finished a workout, I'll aim to try and get some protein in the body in the next 20 minutes. But I also have a guilty secret that I have to let you know, which is that when you're racing these long races, you basically eat like you're at a kid's birthday. Lollies, cakes, raw sugary drinks. That's what best fuels the body through a 12-hour race.
So sorry to say it, glucose.
Exactly. Lots of glucose, no fibre. That's during the race, and then by the time I get to the end, there's nothing like a good salad that I want that I want after far too much sugar.
Yeah, I had actually heard, we've actually had a runner in our membership, and we gave them beetroot because they said it was full of nitrates and increased your oxygen capacity. Do you include beetroot in your diet?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of evidence for beetroot, but you've got to have it in beetroot concentrate. And I've tried it once. It didn't seem to have a massive impact. Okay. And in the end, it was a bit too much of a hassle to get that beetroot juice. Solid beetroot just doesn't have enough of the key elements to make a difference. In the randomized trials that I've seen, it was high intensity beetroot juice. I'm sure if I was going for the pro triathlon field that I'd be into this, but for an amateur like me, regular diet just works fine.
So, Leigh, there's probably 4 that we have to amalgamate to get that concentrate. What are the 4 beetroots?
So the 4, this is the quiz time, Andrew. The 4 are the bullseye, the golden, the white, or the red. Do you have a preference?
No, my only answer is beats me.
Good one. Like that.
Right. So now the government has introduced a strengthened supermarket code of conduct, we hear, and to help address, a range of issues.
And Andrew, there were some major changes in the supermarket code of conduct, which you were heavily involved in. Previously, it was voluntary, so retailers could sign up. Now it's going to be mandatory. What does that actually mean on the ground in reality?
Well, the risk with the old code, Jane, was that supermarkets would hold their suppliers over a barrel and suppliers wouldn't complain for fear of retaliation. Now we've got an anonymous complaints mechanism through the competition watchdog, the ACCC, and multi-million-dollar fines for supermarkets who do the wrong thing. I do need to give a shout out to my predecessor, Craig Emerson, a former competition minister, who did a review of the old food and grocery code and set the pathway through for the mandatory code. We're actually speaking on the day that the code takes effect. Today it's kicking in, and that means that those suppliers will have a better deal than they had under the old code. The ability to make complaints, the ability to know that they can get a better deal for the fabulous produce they're digging out of the ground.
Yeah, so it's going to be policed by people actually reporting issues or the suppliers reporting issues. Is that how it's going to be done?
Absolutely, and the competition watchdog has the policing powers, and people will have the confidence to be able to complain, knowing that those complaints can be made anonymously and they won't then face retaliation. It is really important, particularly for the fresh produce suppliers, where spoilage is a major issue. If a supermarket decides that their produce isn't up to standard, then we've heard instances of produce just having to be dumped or ploughed back into the ground. It's a really difficult situation for those fresh produce suppliers. They'll get a better deal as a result of the new supermarket code of conduct.
Can I just ask a question here? One of the things that happens is, say, for instance, I'm one of the supermarkets and I say to you, Andrew, the grower, I want 4 pallets of watermelon. And then when it comes to it and they get delivered, I go, oh, I changed my mind. I only want 2. And you're left with 2. Does this code cover that, or is that something else?
Yeah, it's certainly going to require a fairer approach from the supermarkets in how they deal with the suppliers. There's also some useful recommendations which the competition watchdog made in a report on supermarkets that just was handed down last month. So we'll work through those. There may need to be further strengthening of the code. But this new code really is important for farmers, and I think probably, Jane, important for all shoppers, because when you go into the supermarket, you don't just want to get the cheapest price, you also want to know that the farmers are getting a fair deal too.
Absolutely. Now, Andrew, the Australian supermarket system, it's heavily dominated, as we know, by a couple of major players, and this has created, as is what has created the significant challenges for farmers and consumers. So, I mean, the ACCC, the last inquiry, I think, was 16 years ago, and they concluded then that there was, too much concentration, little incentive to compete on price, the barriers to entry for other people coming in to play in the market. What has the ACCC concluded now when it comes to the level of competition between the supermarkets? Is it, how's it going to be different?
Yeah, Lee, it's interesting that they compared the situation in 2008 with today. You've seen the entry of Aldi, but you've also seen the shrinking market share of IGA over that period. And those two effects have meant that the duopoly has actually increased its combined market share over the 17 years since we last had a deep dive into grocery prices. Planning and zoning is a big part of this. One of the reasons that the German supermarket Kaufland decided not to come into Australia was couldn't get enough sites. So the ACCC is intending to work with states and territories around how they do their planning and zoning decisions, just to make sure that if there's other entrants who want to come in, that states and territories are putting a competition lens over the top of any planning and zoning decisions they're making. Might be simplest to zone it just so it can be another Coles or another Woolies. But if there's a big benefit to the consumer of having another player come in, then we want the people making the zoning decision to be thinking about that.
And the Greens and the coalition government, the coalition, have been pushing for a breakup of the supermarket chains. It's a bit difficult when it's a business, to tell them what to do. Well, what do you think is going to not work practically and what will work practically around that thinking?
Yeah, Jane, divestment powers are pretty rare in other countries, and even when they exist, they're very rarely used. In the US, you've got to go back to things like Bell Telecom for a last major breakup. They talked about breaking up Microsoft in the 1990s, but it never happened. And it's not going to be a particularly effective stick if the person who's might be used on knows, in fact, it'll never be used. So we focused on the practical things that are recommended. Competition reviews in the past, Harper, Hilmer, Dawson, or this latest ACCC report didn't recommend divestiture powers, and we don't think they're a practical way of handling it. But we have said that we'd put in place price gouging powers, ensuring that supermarkets can't gouge their consumers, can't take advantage of strong market power in order to drive prices well above what's an economically fair level.
At Box Divvy, we actually, Andrew, let our members know where food comes from, so they know who grew their food, who manufactured it if it's a grocery item. So, and we try to get mostly Australian, but obviously some things not grown in Australia or manufactured. But when they join, they tell us that they feel disconnected from where their food comes from. What can the government do to better create a connection to producers?
Yeah, as a kid who went to an agricultural high school, I'm strongly connected to what you're talking about there. I think it is important that people know that baked beans didn't actually get made in a factory, but are real beans that come out of the ground, and that you have a sense as to whether your apples are being made, are being grown in your state or across the other side of the country. As a dad, I find talking about food with my kids is often a way of connecting them to country and to the sense of where they are in that whole food chain. So having better labels on shelves can be important. We've got a Buy Australian campaign which we're rolling out, and that'll encourage more Australians to be shopping local. We've also been providing resources to the competition watchdog around the unit pricing code. It doesn't go directly to your question about where things are made, but it does go to the issue of making sure that those labels are accurate.
That's good.
And well, at Box Divvy, Andrew, you might be aware that we have complete, it's something we brought in last year, we have complete price transparency. We show what we pay the farmer or the wholesaler. The farmers are telling us that why don't consumers know what they get paid at the supermarket level. So there's a growing gap between what supermarkets pay me being the farmer and what it is on the supermarket shelf. I think it has been highlighted, that thing has been highlighted in the media as well. So I remember reading the Woolworths CEO, Amanda Bardwell, in The Guardian. She was quoted that the company welcomed recommendations that improve transparency for customers. I think it was where they don't have unintended consequences or increased costs. Would full price transparency, of pricing, not just selling price published, but also what they paid suppliers fit the bill here.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're able to do it, it certainly provides more information to consumers and allows consumers to get a sense as to what's going on. We saw this in the issue of lamb, for example, last year, where the farm gate prices for farmers were falling, and yet shoppers weren't seeing any change in what they were paying for lamb. So people are aware of that connection, and I think a growing share of consumers are wanting to be that kind of engaged Box Divvy consumer who has a sense not only of what they pay, but also as to what the person who's producing their food has received.
I think also too, Andrew, the story behind what's happening, because that one that gave has got more to it, in that the abattoirs were charging more. So the end seller had not a lot of movement there because they needed to make up for periods like COVID, etc., where there was nothing going through and the abattoirs or very little, or the drought, etc. So sometimes along that supply chain there is a lock and there's a reason for it. It's actually telling people why that lock is happening. One of the things that really concerns me is that I've seen it too is shrinkflation, where the product is this big and then they put it on the shelf and they've actually put up the price and they've actually reduced the size of it. What has the supermarket code done to address this?
So pleased you asked about shrinkflation, Jane. We've provided more resources to the competition watchdog to enforce the unit pricing code because we don't want to see Australians being dudded by paying the same price for less product. Whether it's decreasing the number of bickies in a pack or decreasing the volume of cereal in a box, these sorts of things can dud consumers and have people feeling as though they're not getting a fair deal. Now, what really matters at the end of the day is for consumers to be able to walk out knowing that they're getting value for money in the supermarket. And shrinkflation is an insidious form of raising the price, which sometimes can occur without the consumer noticing.
It's just a matter of telling them, really, isn't it? So it's the same, like,
Absolutely.
brand managers are always changing the look of it and whatever, and then they put the price up. It's just a matter of saying, well, we've reduced the size of the package, and this is what it's going to cost. At least you're not just pulling, because quite often when I was doing supermarket shopping, I was just automatically pulling things off the shelf. I didn't even look because they were my favourite brands.
Yep, absolutely. And that's what enforcing the unit pricing code's all about.
We see firsthand every week how a local community-led food system can work, Andrew. So one that prioritises transparency and it strengthens connections between people and producers. So as far as, well, what do you think, Andrew? Do you think that models like Box Divvy could be a part of a long-term solution? And what can the government do to support or scale up this kind of system?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the portfolios I have is in charities. And as part of my work in charities, I'm acutely aware of the value of community connections. Those community connections can come with groups such as Scouts or Guides, Rotary or Lions. They can come with Clean Up Australia, or they can come with communities who are working together in order to have shared production systems and consumption systems. So linking people better back to their neighbours and to the farmers in their area, I think helps to build connections, which goes beyond the economic impact you're having. It's not just about saving money; it's also about joining people together and having an opportunity so that kids know where their food comes from.
Yeah, exactly. I actually, dare I say, remember the first supermarket in Perth, because really we've only had 3 generations of supermarket. If you take 25 years as a supermarket in Australia. And so they forced out the grocer. I remember going with a list and giving it to my grocer, and he'd pack our groceries and we'd pick them up. And then suddenly we had a trolley and we had to serve ourselves. The self-service thing is becoming more and more. So, dare I say, can we just imagine a future where the duopoly is no longer and we do have a norm of community, maybe a model like Blue Box Divvy as a footprint rather than, having supermarkets? It's a possibility. So, in looking at that, do you think that the traditional supermarket era may be, in fact, changing, or will it continue to dominate? What's your thought?
Jan, one of the things I've learned as an economist is that our profession is particularly bad at forecasting the future. We tend to be over ambitious about the short run, but sometimes under ambitious about what happens in the long run. If you told me when I was a kid that people would be sitting on computers ordering groceries that would then turn up at their doorstep, I would have thought you were crazy. That a model like that seemed like it would involve far too much labour. But that's the way in which many Australians get their groceries now. So
Or
I
even,
wouldn't
so
want to
dare say,
predict.
the Jetsons. You probably might not know that the Jetsons were a cartoon show flying, like the drones, flying and delivering your groceries.
Exactly, yeah. So it would have seemed as sci-fi as the Jetsons. You're
Yeah.
quite right there. So I think while it's difficult to predict the future, what we do want to do is shape a future in which there's much more vibrant competition, many more opportunities for new retail models to emerge, and where we're encouraging, in particular, those community models that are joining people up, and where there isn't just an economic dividend but a social dividend too.
So, Andrew, what can the everyday Australian do to encourage this shift? Is it about supporting businesses like Box TV, or maybe even pushing for government policies that better align with sustainability and an ethical food system?
Yeah, I think supporting governments that put in place strong food and grocery code of conduct, supporting organisations which are providing a competitive threat. One of the things that we see in competition is that consumers who support a challenger can actually help everyone in the ecosystem, because then the challenger grows and you get more competition, which is good for choice and good for prices. So shopping at a challenger rather than shopping at an incumbent is a measure which can help end up with a more dynamic and competitive economy, and an economy where we have much more variety, much more choice, as well as an economically better deal.
Andrew, it seems that there is the current food system is challenged, and but there's lots of optimism, I think, in the future. What's your message to our listeners who want to contribute to a fairer, more sustainable food system? The consumers and growers and community organisers, what's the key thing that you would say to them? Because you were saying that it's great to have the challenges, but what can they actually do themselves on the ground?
Well, I think it's what many people are already doing, Jane, which is to shop around. We're seeing a rise in split basket shopping, an increase in the share of Australians who are choosing to do part of their shop in one place and part at another. And having the option of being able to do that split shopping through a model which is more connected with the grower is, I think, fitting for a nation which has long prized our farming heritage and cherished the connection to land. Not many of us work in agriculture, but ours is a nation that does really value the way in which our food is grown and produced.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Andrew. It's been great to hear everything that you've said. It's also great that both the government and initiatives like Box Divvy are working towards a better food system in the future.
And before we wrap up, Andrew, have you got any more reflections that you'd like to share with us? Some final thoughts?
I think you've covered it off really nicely, Jane. The importance of competition, the importance of community, and the importance of connection. All of those things are important to us as a government, and I can see so much reflected in the work that you do at Box Divvy.
Thank you so much for coming on our podcast. We're quite thrilled. I'm actually more thrilled that you're out there yourself doing all the physical stuff. I do Pilates and yoga, and Leigh is actually a Pilates teacher. So we're actually, in there trying to make the change ourselves. And I think that's what's so important about it. Eat well and exercise. I think they're two of the things, because your mind will be healthy as well doing that.
Absolutely. And Pilates has been one of the best ways I've avoided injury out in doing Ironman triathlons and ultra marathons. Just keeping up your strength. It's like eating well. It's a good preventative measure to allow you to do the things you love.
What a pleasure, Jane, sitting down with Andrew, having a chat on pressing issues and Australian competition policy.
And one thing, Leigh, Andrew loves eating well. So let's lighten the mood a bit, because Andrew has a culinary side too.
Yes, well, we're going to switch gears here, Jane. Imagine this. It's the weekend. You're in the kitchen after a busy week at Parliament, home with the family. What do? Well, for Andrew, grilling burgers is his go-to recipe for relaxing and unwinding.
So let's take a look at Andrew cooking up a burger storm.
So tonight we're doing burgers and sweet potato mash. So let's get going and preparing the sweet potatoes. As you can see, peeling is not my forte. Does that mean I'm not very appealing? And as you can probably tell, I'm a dad of 3. All right, now to the patties. So in this bowl, we've got beef, we've got eggs, we've got breadcrumbs, we've got rosemary, and we've got a little bit of salt. So now we're going to mix it all together and form up the patties. So this is a real hands-on experience. If you enjoy the texture, fantastic. Let's keep on working until we get those breadcrumbs all mixed through. Be as artistic as you like. Circles, squares, ovals. You can try and create your favourite Halloween character. You can build them into Pac-Mans if you like. And in the end, they will all look exactly the same. Every serve of burgers needs a good salad, so let's wash up some salad leaves. There we go. We'll make up a nice little garden salad. Let's get those burgers on. So they'll be on for around 7 to 10 minutes. As you can see, my burgers are not the perfectly shaped circles that you'll see if you go to a commercial location. but they're made with love. Simmer away on a moderate heat for a while. Meanwhile, let's get some tomato in the salad. I'm kind of like wedges. Something nice about tomato wedges to my chop. And now let's add a little bit of feta cheese. Just sprinkle some crumbed feta over the top. Who doesn't love feta cheese? Now, this is a tricky bit. I don't know if I'm going to get this right, but the idea is we make parmesan circles and about the same size as the burgers. We put these in the oven, and when they come out, we ought to have lovely hot parmesan to go with our burgers. Let's see how it goes. Right, now let's get our buns in the oven. Slice each of them in half. And place them ready side up. Burger patties are ready. Pop these in. And let's just have a quick glance at how the burger patties are doing. Can we get a close up on the burger patties? A beautiful sizzling sound. Alright, let's get that sweet potato mash. So we'll get the sweet potato off the heat. Put it into a colander, and then we're going to mash it up with a little bit of milk and butter and maybe a touch of brown sugar. Now the exciting bit, where it all comes together. So, let's get burger and the parmesan round. These worked out better than I expected. And a little bit of salad. Use fingers. There we go. We will leave each person to do their own choice of tomato sauce. And so here we are. Burgers, salad, sweet potato mash and beans. Dinner for 4. Bon appetit.
Oh, I love that, Leigh. A simple weeknight dinner or even a weekend barbecue with the family. There's nothing so timeless about a well-made burger.
So if you're feeling inspired by Andrew's burger creation, why not try it this weekend? We've got the link to the recipe in the description below.
And that's it from us, listeners. Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast.
Like this episode?
And until next time,
Unsupermarket!